Ladies and gentlemen, it's me again, Meat Puppet. I'm going to react as a right-winger to a radical leftist that is going to react to a leftist debating a radical right-winger. At least they label us like that.
So for a grounded example, my life was pretty bad. I got into streaming and I turned my life around, and that was really cool, but I can't expect everybody to do what I did, right? Like everybody being able to join the NBA or to be like a streamer.
Well, of course, everybody has different qualities, sure.
Okay. So I used to be a lot more libertarian when I was 21, and one of the things...
They are two grown men. They can disagree with each other without having to yell and throw insults. I learned a lot from this interview from both of them. Oh, God.
It dramatically changed.
Don't have a middle ground. Wow. I wonder who's divisive at the moment.
Kind of my view on government manipulation of things in the, I guess, in society came when it came time to deal with my son and the school that he went to. And one of the things that I noticed was when it came time to send my son to school, I could either do private education or I could do public. Personally, I did 12 years of Catholic private education. However, the public schools in Nebraska, depending on where you lived, were very, very, very good. And I opted for a certain district. I bought a house there. I moved there. And then my son was able to go to those schools. And he's been going through those schools. And the difference of availability of like technology, like these kids are taking home iPads in like first grade. They've got like huge computer labs and everything. Do you think that there is some type of, I don't want to say injustice or unfairness, because I'm not even looking at it that way, just pragmatically, that there might be children that are in certain schools that if they just had better funding or more access to technologies or things available to them, that those kids would become more productive members of society, that with like a little bit of a help, they could actually achieve more and do better for all of society?
So I think that on the list of priorities, when you
Ben Shapiro is going to deflect away, either go school choice here, or he's going to say that it's like family values.
That's a good thing. It's kind of weird when they keep hitting down on family values when most immigrants that actually succeeds in America are people that respect family value.
He could do both, honestly. Ultimately, this conversation between these two people will not go anywhere productive unless it goes back to, I guess, how to manage taxes.
comes to education, the availability of technology is actually fairly low on the list of priorities.
Sure, the two things I've heard are food availability and I think air conditioning, I think are the two biggest ones that I hear, but sure.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing in terms of education itself, not just the physical facilities that we're talking about, would actually be two-parent family households.
Sure.
I knew our son would react like this. Oh my God, families together. That's such a bad thing. Yeah, let's see.
The way to respond to this is quite simple.
Oh.
Okay? Of course he's going to say that because he has nothing else. He's a idiot. The way to respond to this is super simple. When you look at divorce rates or when you look at two-parent household rates across the board in other countries, obviously there's other externalities that are that play a role in this, like the carceral state. Ben Shapiro will try to, of course, bring it back to like culture, which is a substitute for race in this conversation.
It's true. It's true. This is one of the main points that we see certain things in the black culture. Look how these girls are dancing. For the people that don't know what these kids are singing, because you can hear adults in the background, they're saying, bang that asshole, let that coochie breathe. Coochie is your pum pum. Coochie is your punani. Think about it. If that is part of your culture and people are promoting it, no wonder black people are doing so bad. Don't believe me? Let's ask a billionaire.
Average white family in America makes $60,000. The average Indian family in America makes $100,000. Number one immigrant community in America is the Indians. The average black family in America, I think it's 38,000. And so blacks, then Hispanics, then whites. But you know who beats the whites? Pakistanis, Chinese, and Indians.
It's crazy.
It's work ethic. It's focus on education.
But they keep focusing on just the white people. Come on, man.
Communities that have fathers in them is actually the number one, decisive according to Roland Fryer and many studies done on this particular topic. And
yeah, by the way, the two-party household concept is directly a consequence of material wealth, okay?
What?
Two-parent households yield better outcomes for the child not because of some, holistic, spiritual,
Yes, they
religious
do.
reason.
Yes, they
but
do.
Because two parents imply that you have more spare time to take care of the child and you have more disposable income to ensure that the child has like
That's a lie.
just-
No,
he
no,
just
you're
doesn't
not
have
a
to work
father,
for-
man. He's not a father. You know what's the beautiful thing? You can have poor people, middle class people, and rich people. The most important thing for the kid is to see a father and a mother disagree, even if they're different, and they can understand a middle ground. If both are available at the same time, the amount of money that you have doesn't really change a bunch of stuff, because most kids are going to say, you know what? I want to spend time with my family, but if my family doesn't have time to spend it with me, I will go play with a toy. My kid prefers to play with me than the iPad because I'm an available father, right? Or available mother that's there. You need to have the teamwork. So the idea that certain kids without money are way more happy than certain kids that keep focusing on material stuff because they need the material to be happy. I'm like, he doesn't even understand that. It's like, well, they need iPad, bada bing, bada boom. I come from a poor country. We have so little suicide. But for some odd reason, all these Western countries with all the mumbo jumbo, you have a bunch of suicide. I wonder why. If you don't have a family, you shouldn't talk about maintaining a family. Especially when you're using money to replace all the things that you think family are supposed to give you.
people that come from two-parent households that have more disposable income and more free time to take care of the child are often going to have other factors that play a role in the development of the child as well.
The idea that money alone, that investment of resources is the top priority in schooling is belied by the fact that LAUSD, which is where I went to school when I was younger, they pour an enormous amount of money into LAUSD. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars very often per student, and it does not result in better schooling outcomes.
See?
And so when you say, if we could give every kid an iPad, would you give every kid an iPad? The question is not, if I had a replicator machine from Star Trek, would I give everybody an enormous amount of stuff? Sure, I would. Every resource is finite. Every resource is limited. And you have to prioritize what are the outcomes that you seek in terms of the means with which you are seeking them. And so, again, I think that the question is I quibble with the premise of the question, which is that, again, the chief injustice when it comes to education on the list of injustices is lack of availability to technology or that it's a funding problem. I just don't think that's the case.
Sure, and I can half agree with you there, but I don't think any amount of changes in the schools will create two-parent households. Right, we can't bring a...
I totally agree with you.
So
that's why I think that the fundamental educational problem is not, in fact, a schooling problem. I think that it pre-exists that.
Sure, but then I feel like this is kind of the conservative merry-go-round where it's like, what can we do to help with schools? So two of the things that I've seen, I think, that are usually brought up in research is one is air conditioning, that children in hotter environments just don't learn as well. And then the second one is access to...
What are you
food. So kids
talking
are given,
about?
like,
I was born in Curacao. It's like 40 degrees almost the whole freaking year. You can still study. That's not the main issue. The whole idea, we need to do this, tax. And then people are surprised. We've been taxing people so much because we want to give them good education. They can pay for the food because inflation.
that's provided at school, like increases educational outcomes. Now, I agree that neither of these things might be determinative in like, well, 20% of kids were graduating and now 80% of kids are graduating, or these kids are all going, from with their GEDs into the workforce and now these kids are all suddenly becoming engineers. But in terms of where we can help, do you think there should be like some minimum threshold or minimum baseline of like, at the very least every...
The science behind that conclusion that parents stay together because of good material conditions is strong. Republicans clearly don't want to change material conditions. The only reason they bring the issue of two-parent households is literally just racism. That's it. Exactly.
Wow.
Especially without like analyzing like different cultural differences even. But also claiming that there is no other reason as to why like black families are from broken households. Just a racist dog whistle.
Or every school should have, if children can't afford lunch or breakfast, like some sort of food provided, or every school should have these like baseline things.
So, again, I'm going to quibble with the premise of the question because I think that when it comes to, for example, food insecurity, school food programs, again, you can always pour money into any program and at the margins create change. I mean, there's no doubt that pouring money onto anything will create change
my
in
God.
a marginal way. The question is how large is the margin and how big is the movement?
Yeah. There's a finite amount of resources, right, Ben? That's why you just can't give them money because I'm just trying to make it efficient, is what Ben is saying. How is he trying to make it efficient? Let me tell you something, okay? Here's why right-wingers are such fabulous.
Thank
the
you.
notion that like Ben is this intellectual giant who's actually thinking critically on the matter is silly as From where I'm standing, from where I'm sitting and understanding what Ben Shapiro is saying, he is more insane than any anarchist I've ever met that
Wow.
thinks that we can kumbaya tickle party fucking, I don't know, criminals.
Oh, like Antifa.
Okay? Why? because he thinks that we can somehow force people to be locked into fucking marriages in a way that like won't cause genuine chaos.
You want the government to tax everybody in oblivion, especially when you have the money to pay for the majority of the things that you can live like a rich person on a moral high ground, and that for some odd reason you don't think in consideration that the poor people themselves can buy anything. They don't even have incentive to do anything by themselves because you're going to give them welfare anyway, and if they earn too much money, we're going to take away the incentive. Nobody has to work hard. Nobody has purses. And no wonder everybody has anxiety, depression, I don't have a father, I feel alone. Amen. It's like we live in a rich country, but the mindset, it's like we're living back in the day on horses. Let's go attack the castle. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Why would you normalize? Hey, it's just a baby. It's okay. Aborted. No marriages. It's okay. We will give you iPad at the new school and you will become an engineer. And if it doesn't work, we will find out the issue for you by taxing you more so we can do the research, so we can get the result that we want, to tax you even more to support the thing that we wanted. Bruh, it makes no sense. I'm not saying that we can't do progressive thing to help people, but the method that you want to solve the things is like everybody needs to be happy, and that's impossible. There is there is finite money, the one that you tax.
How are you going to do that? It's such a idiotic way to try and solve this problem instead of looking at other comparable OECD nations and seeing what they've done.
And how many times you tried something and it didn't solve and you came with a new one. Always a new version. I'm like, maybe you're part of the freaking problem.
At the Finnish model and decided we're going to do the exact same thing, you would see educational outcomes that were better immediately. More funding for schools and a more even way of developing schools would abso-fucking-lutely fix like half the issues.
And if you look at the Finnish model, there is no diversity, equity, inclusion. Are you going to copy that too? No.
So the delta is what I'm looking at. And so I think that you're starting at a second order question, which is, what if we ignore what I would think are the big primary questions of education, namely family structure, value of education at home, how much you have parents who are capable or willing to help with homework, what are the incentive structures we can set up for a society that actually facilitate that, how local communities take ownership of their schools is a big one, right? All of these issues we're ignoring in favor of, say, air conditioning or lunch programs. And so in a vacuum, if you say air conditioning and lunch programs, sounds great in a vacuum. In terms of prioritization of values and cost structure, are those the things that I think are going to move the needle in a major way in terms of public policy?
We only have a finite amount of resources. We can't give iPads to every children. And I'm simply talking about like what's the most efficient way of using the limited amount of government resources we have.
Which money? America is in debt.
I do not. And in fact, I think that many of them end up being disproportionate wastes of money. I mean, I've talked before pretty controversially about the fact that an enormous amount of school lunch programs are thrown out. Like an enormous amount of that food ends up in the garbage can. Is there a better...
Dude, that's crazy. Pointing to the waste in school lunch programs in a way to like try to undermine one of the most important social programs is insane. It's yet again another instance where it is perfectly valid for private corporations to dump metric tons of shit in an effort to ensure that they still have a steady flow of profits, even though we have created an abundance of food in this country.
Oh, so his logic is, these people are throwing food away, so if they can, we need to let them throw food away too, because it's okay. Even if those that are throwing the food away is using my money.
You would never make this argument for cutting waste if the government actually put together an initiative that said, hey, you can actually dump out the extra milk in an effort to in an effort to ensure that there is like some level of scarcity so that your price points so that your price is adjusted, right? To maintain price stability, you're going to have to limit supply.
This pisses me off so much because I was about to say that. Look, if you make too much milk and the government that you want to regulate everything comes by and says, if you produce too many milk, instead of giving it free, just throw it away. Because if it's in the market, you will lower the prices. And we tax you when you want to sell the stuff. But if we tax you when the price is low, we will get very little. They make their own mistake and use it as an argument to beat you in a debate. It makes no sense. Produce millions of gallons of milk. Lower the freaking prices. If you're hungry, drink milk. Why not give it away free at school? But no, the government says throw it away. Whose fault is that?
Someone were to actually advocate for that, Ben would lose his fucking mind. He would be like, that's communism. That's communism. But the moment that like a school is dumping out a little bit of their program, of their food program, we're talking about children, for the record, children getting food, sometimes the most nutritious meal that millions.
I don't think any conservative that usually are farmers would agree to throw away food, especially when most conservatives or more people of family value would not respect the idea of food not being eaten on time.
Better way to do that. If there is a better way to do it, then I'm perfectly willing to hear about that better way to do it. But it seems
Yeah,
to me that one
here.
of the big flaws in the way that many people of the left approach government is, what if we hit every gnat with a hammer? And my question is, what if the gnat isn't even the problem? What if there's a much bigger substructure problem that needs to be solved in order to, if you're shifting deck chairs on the Titanic, sure, you can make the Titanic slightly more balanced because the deck chairs are slightly better oriented. But the real question is the water that's gaping into the Titanic, right?
Yeah,
Good
and I agree with
point.
you 100%. But again, I feel like we're on the conservative merry-go-round then of never wanting to address
That's not a
any.
conservative merry-go-round. I can give you 10 ways.
Well, sure, but so like here would be the merry-go-round. I would say that like there's a minimum funding for schools that I think would help children, and then we go, well, the thing that would help them the most is two-parent households. And I go, okay, well, two-parent households actually aren't the problem. The issue is access to things like birth control, so that people don't have children early on. And it's like, but the issue isn't actually birth control.
First of all, the amount of black people that I spoke about, I like to do it raw. I don't want to use a condom because I don't feel anything. Hey bro, you haven't seen a lot of father available in your life, so you have no idea what you're missing out. I'm having a blast taking care of my kids, and I have so many people that can't relate, especially on the black side. I have a lot of Hispanics, I have a lot of Asian, I have a lot of white people, I have a lot of Pakistani people, I have a lot of African people.
To have a two-parent household, so it's actually like economic opportunity.
No.
Well, it's not, you know,
No, just two-parent households.
yeah,
That's
but
it.
like,
See?
what are the
Don't
precursors?
fuck people before you...
No, just two-parent households.
It's
Okay, how do
true.
you do it then?
From what I get from this, many leftists believe if you don't have money, you can't be happy. That is bull crap.
You're ready to have babies.
Sure.
Done.
That's great. We can say that and try to fight against, you know, however many hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, but people will have sex and people will make babies.
And then they used to get married. The vast majority of people in this country with kids used to be married.
Notice how we moved away from school funding, by the way, and now they're talking about something completely irrelevant to that. Okay? It's over.
And I can also say on your side, you think money makes the baby happy. Simple.
He got trapped in his fucking rabbit hole. Now he's talking about the boundaries of family values and marriage.
Because
Why
it's
are
so
we talking
bad.
about marriage when the subject matter is supposed to be on education?
Married. The vast majority of people with kids in this country
Sure.
now are not married increasingly.
But
That
a
is
lot of
obviously a
the-
societal change.
Yeah,
Something
true.
changed. It wasn't human evolution.
But a lot of those things in terms of resting on whether or not people get married have to do with financial decisions. Do you have the money?
People are worse off now.
I don't disagree with you, but you can't make it sound like the U.S. serves healthy food at schools because they simply don't. It's literal poison that looks like food. You want to know the fucking sad state of affairs, my friend?
What?
I know that. And yet that is still the most nutritious meal that a child has
Yeah,
in
poison.
millions of food insecure families. I know that. That's how bad the fucking situation is, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
But I also want to wonder why the parents don't have money to pay for food for their kids. Why are you making babies? Okay, it happened by accident. Okay, we will help you. I can agree with that. But at least provide the incentive that we're going to educate people. If you don't have food, your kid will go hungry. Push a message.
Now than they were 50, 60 years ago when the marriage rates were higher.
People are delaying the start of their careers because education is going to be increasingly important.
So, in other words, people are richer now and they have more education now, and yet they're having more babies out of wedlock now because they're richer and have more education.
I'm saying that one of the biggest indicators for whether or not somebody's willing to get married is how much money both people are making if they can move out of their household. People don't tend to want to get married at 22 when they've just finished college, when they don't have the money to move out and they can't afford a house.
Because we have changed the moral status of marriage in the culture, meaning that everyone, poor, rich, and in between, used to get married.
Yeah.
That is, by the way, a huge percentage of marriages in the United States used to be what they
Yeah.
call shotgun marriages, meaning that somebody knocked...
Dude, none of that is good. None of that is good for the health.
Oh
of
man, I can't listen to him anymore. The amount of people that just were in their 20s, they were like, we're going to get married and we're going to work through this and we're going to invest and try to build something beautiful of this miserable life, even if everybody thinks it's miserable, but everybody has been doing it, so we can do it together. We're going to be the best. That's how it was back in the day. The only difference right now is you can find all these things on the internet. You educate yourself, demotivate yourself. You don't do anything about it. Complain because of this. Most people that married and tried to find a better future, they didn't even think about this issue because they thought, who cares? Everybody has problems. I just need to be very consistent and life is good. And they handle it as if nothing happens. I can tell you some of the most depressing things that I've done in my life to stick with my family and how my father has done it. Guess what? Everybody that I tell this in Western country keep telling me it's your human right to not experience this. And all I want to say as the Christian that I am, shut the
Stop! You violated the law.
pisses me off. I'm like, do you know how proud I am that I did this for my family? That it reflects on how my kids see me? You have no idea. Man, it's so sad, man.
Somebody up, and because they did not want the baby to be born outside of a two-parent household, they would then get married.
Do we think that shotgun marriages, though, are a way to bring back equilibrium to education?
Yes.
That if we,
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to react about this, but there's Hassan. The way he talks so condescending about certain points, it's triggering. And it actually makes me sad that he can only find a solution if there is money to throw away waste that is not his money, but actually it's the money of the people that he considers it is normal to tax by big government. And guess what? He's a millionaire. Not because he's working hard. No, because he's reacting to video and people watch him react to these videos. Cool! My MS is kicking in. Sorry for the long video, but if you're still here and you enjoyed the video, like, share, hit the bell notification, so I know you really like it. Or disagree, but if you want me to do more.